Hi, everyone, and welcome to this very special live stream PanQuake event. I'm your host, Taylor Hudak. Social media lovers and haters alike were very excited to hear the recent news of a planned new short messaging platform called PanQuake. Many of you were so excited that even prior to the full launch of this product, we had many people heading to the panquake.com community fundraising page and donating to this product to ensure that this platform gets launched without delay. So throughout this event this evening, you will hear from co-founder Suzy Dawson and Joe Booth, founder of the Yale Privacy Lab, Sean O'Brien, as well as ex-NSA Technical Director Bill Binney, for a tech deep dive into PanQuake, where viewers will learn more about the PanQuake business model, the architecture, including the blockchain, as well as security and sustainability, and licensing and privacy. But first off, I do want to kick this event off with co-founder Suzy Dawson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully by now you have all seen the full event stream from last week, which featured a number of our high-profile public supporters alongside myself talking about what PanQuake means to them. Also, and there was 45 minutes bonus content that has been released at the end of that stream where you got to meet members of our team and hear from them directly about what their experience has been being a part of this team and helping to develop this product. If you haven't yet seen it, you will find that stream is available on our Vimeo channel at vimeo.com/panquake, also at our YouTube channel, the PanQuake YouTube channel, and my own personal channel, Suzy 3D. Those streams will also shortly be available on our website, talkliberation.com. And of course, there is more information about our product and our campaign available on our website, panquake.com. So it is my privilege to talk to you tonight and give you more detail about this business and about this product. We have had many outreach emails from you across the course of this week. Our wonderful business support team has done a fantastic job of replying to those and interacting with you. And there have been a number of questions from you, which we have taken note of and which we hope to address in this stream tonight. Just as a disclaimer, I will be employing a lot of geek speak tonight. You will see Suzy, the technical manager, rather than just Suzy, the journalist or activist that you have come to know to date. We are hoping to satisfy the curiosity of the techies out there who really want to know about what is under the engine of PanQuake, but I'm also going to endeavor to give little synopsises of each part that are in approachable enough language that even a non-technical audience will be able to absorb and to understand. So wish me luck that I can do my best to speak both the geek speak to the techies and the non-geek speak to those of you who need more plain language used in order to understand what we're discussing tonight. We will be releasing a hybrid white paper with our first beta release of the product PanQuake. That white paper will be a combination of a marketing white paper and a technical white paper. You will notice that many blockchain products do have a technical white paper accompanying their initial release, and PanQuake is no different to that. Some of the architectural documentation I will take you through tonight will appear in that white paper. So first, I just wanted to assuage some concerns of some users around very reasonable and understandable concerns around security, privacy, and hosting. So recently we have seen major alt tech, as they've become known, social media platforms under attack by tech giants like Google, like Amazon Web Services. And repeatedly, I've seen the question over the course of the last week come to us, how will PanQuake be different? How will PanQuake not be taken down by those tech giants? And I'm not going to get too detailed with letting you know about our security and sustainability planning, but I can tell you that from day one of the development of this product, That has been our primary concern and consideration, both from an architectural standpoint and from a business sustainability standpoint. So I'm happy to confirm to you that our hosting solution rhymes with Iceland. We will not be hosting our service in the United States. We will not be subjecting ourselves to their jurisdiction. We will be operating in multiple international jurisdictions that respect privacy, that respect freedom of information, and respect and reinforce human rights of internet users around the world. So you can be sure that we will not be following the path of some of the other companies who unfortunately have been all but destroyed by those tech giants. And we are truly presenting an alternative solution to our user base, one that you can have confidence in will still be around into the future. So there'll be a big talk shortly after me from Sean O'Brien, who is our privacy guru and is a member of the executive committee of PanQuake. He is, of course, the founder of the privacy lab at Yale School of Law. And I'll leave it to him to get really in depth into how PanQuake protects your privacy. However, there was just a couple of points that I did want to make about our public website, things that the average user might not have noticed, but which I think would come as a huge relief to you to know about. And that is this, and let me share my screen with you. I tweeted last week, there are some things you may not have noticed about panquake.com, but will be of interest to anyone concerned about user privacy and who's wondering whether we live up to our promises. We have deliberately stripped out all of the Google trackers on our website. There is no notice asking you to accept cookies because we don't have any cookies at all on our pages. That's why there is nothing asking you to accept cookies. Our site has been vetted for open source and freedom software compliance, which is why there's a little line of text, verification text at the bottom of our website pages to that end. Also wanted to talk briefly about the 12-word passphrase, the early access code that some users have been collecting. We deliberately designed that system to give you that code in order to avoid capturing user emails, names, phone numbers, or any other personal information. And I also wanted to point out to you that even on our donation page, you can enter a junk email address such as a@b.com, and it will still work. You can complete our donation process without having to supply a verifiable email address. We have gone to great lengths to build an ethical private solution that allows for anonymous use. I doubt that you'll find any other social media company going to these lengths to protect you. And I hope this information helps to inform your decision on whether or not to support us. So as I said, I'll leave Sean to talk about other key aspects around privacy. And I'm just going to move on now to talking to you about our release model for PanQuake. We intend to do stage releases. This is also known as iterative development and deployment. We have planned for 3 releases of the PanQuake application. There will be a closed beta release where we will invite a limited number of users who we have personally vetted to use our network and to test our network. We will then release a more enhanced functionality set in what we call a version 1.1. And then we will have our full public release, which we call our 2.0. So I'm going to take you through exactly the functionality sets that will be released with each of those versions. And then I'm going to do an architectural presentation to you, which will explain exactly why we've chosen to do stage releases and what the significance of each of those releases is in terms of deploying our network architecture. So as I just mentioned, there is the ability to use PanQuake as a completely anonymous user from the public 2.0 release. When you log on to PanQuake at the 2.0, you will automatically be an anonymous user by default. From the second that you hit our website, you will see an anonymous user profile, anonymous bio, and you will be able to browse content on our site. There will be very limited but free and anonymously accessed functionality set. You will be able to share content that you view onto your anonymous timeline. You will be able to follow users whose content you want to see. You will be able to reply to users and to interact with them. What you will not be able to do is to generate new content and add that onto our blockchain. And this is for the protection of the integrity of our network and our chain. In order to access that, the full functionality set, including all of the awesome new cool functionality and innovations that I described in our event last week, our PanQuakes, our Lovequakes, our Thunderquakes, our Cupquakes, you will need to register. Registration has been set at the lowest fee possible for us in order to remain feasible as a commercial product. And we have several other ways that you can obtain accounts without having to directly pay for them personally if your circumstances do not allow you to do so. And I will be discussing that commercialization model as well as our moderation model and our policy closer towards the end of this presentation. Right now, I'm going to get into these staged releases of PanQuake and exactly what will be delivered in each of those. So here we have our 3 releases and what is contained within each. So our beta release is going to be offered to 5,000 users. These 5,000 users are being personally invited by us. They are people we know, people we trust, people we love, people who we can vouch for the integrity of the content and conduct of. They are people who followed us for years or who we followed for years and who we most trust to be a core part of our network. At the beta release, those users will have the ability to create a handle and a password. This will populate the initial internal user directory or user list so that they can search each other's name up and follow each other and interact with each other. They will be able to set a thumbnail picture on their profile, a bio, edit their bio details, add links to their websites, public contact email address or information if they want to, totally voluntary there, and to accrue Thunderquake points. They will have a user number, which is just a static number that will reflect how early or late they've come on and to be a part of the network. And they'll also have an amazing function, which is called self-verification. Self-verification is completely optional. If you don't want to self-verify, you don't have to. But what self-verification does is remove the platform as the middleman who decides whether or not you're a verified account. Self-verification means that you can verify yourself and link yourself to other public profiles if you choose to, in such a way that your followers can then be certain that you are that person, but without you having to wait in some queue or have arbitrary approval from the service itself. So for example, if I want to self-verify myself on PanQuake, I will go to my Suzy 3D Twitter account. I will simply post a message, or maybe my Facebook account, post a message saying, "Hi, I am on PanQuake. This is my handle at Suzy 3D. I will take the link to that social media post. I will enter into the self-verification field in PanQuake, hit enter, and now anybody who views my PanQuake profile will be able to click that link and verify through my other public accounts that I am in fact that user. Of course, if I don't want people to know I'm Suzy 3D on PanQuake, I can simply leave that field blank. In the beta, you will have the ability to post time linear, editable, yes, editable, content known as quakes. These quakes are short messages. You will be able to sort your timeline content by a series of content filters. For example, who you're following, or just your own content, or followers, or your own followers, etc., etc. You'll be able to sort by whether it's quakes or whether it's PanQuakes, which is the stacks of curated messages that we discussed last week. You will be able to have the following interactions. You can reply, you can like, you can amplify content, which means sharing it onto your timeline, onto your PanQuake timeline. You will be able to follow people. You'll be able to mention people. You will be able to stack quakes into PanQuakes, create PanQuakes, which then become shareable links to your stacked curated content. You'll be able to earn and gift Thunderquakes, Cupquakes, and also apply Lovequakes. In terms of notifications, you'll receive 9 different types of notifications. You will receive notifications if someone has liked your content, if they've amplified your content, if they have followed you, if they have mentioned you, if they have stacked your content into a PanQuake, if they have gifted you a Thunderquake point that they've earned, which is that super powerful messaging that we discussed last week. If they have Lovequaked you, which means that they'll be blanket amplifying all of the content that you post onto their timeline, whether or not they are online or offline when you post it. Or if they have Cupquaked you, which means promoted your account to their followers and asked their followers to follow you. You will be able to accrue a following count. You will be able to accrue a follower count. You will have a calculation of your total reach. Your total reach is not just your followers, but their followers as well. And we will have an activity stream. So I follow Caitlin Johnston would show up on the activity stream as one example. In terms of account functions, you'll be able to edit your account information. You'll be able to change your password. You'll be able to deactivate your account if you wish. You'll be able to access your account archives and download your account archives. But more importantly, and this is probably one of the most amazing functions, you will be able to upload your Twitter account archives to PanQuake and populate your timeline with your historic tweets. So I strongly suggest, if you don't already, that you periodically download your Twitter archive. That function is available in your account settings on Twitter because you will want to have that file handy when it comes time to migrate to PanQuake. You'll also be able to report or block other users if needs be. So that's the functionality that will be available to our beta users at our initial 1.0 release. And then we will be building towards the 1.1 release, which is an enhanced functionality set, which has more advanced options, particularly around searching, advanced searching, tracking keywords that you wish to follow, groups, that type of thing, tracking notifications more effectively. The most important factor from our perspective around the 1.1 release is that we will give users from our beta the ability to invite their friends who they trust to the PanQuake platform. So beta users will be able to generate a join link or a code and to refer their closest friends to our network to join it. So at that time, we'll be looking to go from 5,000 to an additional 20,000 users for a total of 25,000 users. Once we have hit our 25,000, we will close the 1.1 and we will move towards the public build, the public version 2.0 release. And that is when our network will become open to anybody to join. And that is when we will give OAuth options for logins and also 2FA via OTP. So basically the authentication will happen on the browser side of the user, which again means we're not collecting mobile information, we're not collecting phone numbers, we're not collecting private information at all from our users. And the 2FA is optional, it's not mandatory. So there will also be optional links to other social accounts if you want to integrate. There will be the ability to create lists, and there will be Bill Binney's pet project, which is encrypted DMs, P2P, off-chain and anonymized, as well as push notifications, again, optional if you want those. That's all going to happen client side. Also interoperability and inter-network integrations. So we have already some very major deals in the works around integrating PanQuake with other networks. That will provide a greater base of content being ported into PanQuake, and the ability for PanQuake content to port out to other networks as well, which means even if we have a small number of users, we can present a large amount of content in our application for our users to engage with. And we can contribute our content to other decentralized networks. I won't be giving any more specifics on what is happening with that yet. That will be a discussion for future months once those integrations have been completed. But that is happening, and it is going to give us reach far beyond just our own initial user base. Also, I'd like to mention that, and we have talked about it on social media, we will be giving the option for people to gift PanQuake accounts. So if you want to pay for your teenager or your friends or your employees, you'll be able to make bulk purchases of accounts and to give those accounts to other people. But most importantly, especially given COVID and the fact that many, many people find themselves in hardship circumstances right now, we also will be allowing compassionate accounts. So our monthly charge is actually a monthly minimum charge. And anybody who elects to pay more than that monthly fee, the excess funds will go into a compassionate account fund, and we will use that to give accounts to anybody who writes to us and explains to us that they are facing hardship circumstances. So if you have lost your job, if you are struggling for food, as many people are right now, if you cannot cover the basics, we don't want to stop you from using our platform. We still want you to be able to get the best possible use of it. And so we will make sure that you have access to this technology if you are not able to contribute financially. So moving along into our architectural presentation, a lot of people want to know about our blockchain implementation. So basically, in a nutshell, we are building our own blockchain. It is a federated blockchain. We're doing this for a number of reasons. First of all, we want to be able to have autonomy for our chain. We don't want to build onto an existing solution. We don't want to be dealing with their limitations, with their legacy issues, with their compliance, with their policy. We want to be able to develop our own across the board. Fundamentally, the difference between our blockchain and many other blockchains is that we are not monetizing this blockchain. Although I have spoken about the fact that we are offering cryptocurrency and monetization options down the line, that won't be on this chain. Our own chain is content only and largely text-based. So we will be packaging content and interactions into transactions lists, and then those will be saved to the block. And then, of course, all blocks combine into a general ledger file, and that general ledger file exists only on user devices and published publicly to the web, and then browsable by any user. So in layman's terms, basically, all of the content that you want to be public is getting saved into like a little vault, and a copy of what's in that vault is on everybody's devices at all times. And it's also available through a website that you can browse, and we call that a block explorer. So there is a block explorer interface for our blockchain. So a lot of people who don't really understand blockchain will say, but isn't this bad for privacy? Because actually we don't want everyone to be able to see our stuff. The easy answer to that is that with the existing solutions, everybody can see your stuff anyway. So whatever I tweet, whatever I put on my Twitter timeline is publicly accessible to anybody that wants to look at it, whether or not they follow me. Even if I've blocked them, they can just log out of the application and then go and look at my timeline anyway. So what we're saving to the block is not private information, it's not private data. We are only saving content which has been intended to be public because you want people to see it, because you want to grow your followers, and you want to spread your content as far and wide as possible. So the real power of the blockchain is around transparency, because it means that you can verify that everything that you have done, the actions that you've taken as a user, have been recorded onto the network, and you can see if those have been meddled with in any way, shape, or form. So on a daily basis at the moment, I'm seeing people complain that their retweets and likes are being lifted on Twitter. Well, with PanQuake and our blockchain, you'll be able to verify if you've liked something. You'll be able to verify if you've amplified it, and you'll be able to verify that nobody has messed with that. Conversely, when we do moderate content, we will provide the ability for you to know what was modified, on what day, at what time, who modified it, what account authored the content that is being modified and or moderated, and the reason why that has been moderated. And currently, the big tech companies do not offer this. When moderation occurs on big tech platforms, you never know about it. So for the techies, we've got all the details here about what's in a block, how are we creating our Genesis block, who are the verifiers and signers on that block. You can see that for yourself. I don't think I really need to talk through it. You know, if you know anything about blockchain, you understand that each block references the hash from the previous block and that's what chains them. You probably know that you can use chameleon hashes so that you can do block modifications if you need to, though it's not ideal, at least it does give you that flexibility. You also probably know that there's no point really moderating a block in the sense that past copies of the blockchain can in fact be accessed via applications that allow you to view those past records, even if moderations have occurred in the future records. And therefore, you probably know that we will be having to apply our moderation at front end on application side rather than on the block. What that means translated for regular users is that when we moderate content, we'll make it so that that content doesn't appear anymore in the application itself that is actually on your device that you're viewing, because that is the most effective way for us to do it. But our moderations will be recorded to the block. So you will understand and be able to see for yourself when moderation has occurred and why. So moving forward into the blockchain process, this is the actual process by which a user posts content on their application on their device, and it actually eventually ends up saved onto the blockchain. So the content is packaged as transactions and broadcast to known nodes on the network, so nodes that are close to you on the network. Those nodes compile, and I should say we have little node clusters with different levels of authority that have different abilities to process that information. Those nodes, the trusted nodes, compile lists of pending transactions, and they get packaged into a block. Those nodes then send that block to the full network for consensus. So regardless of the authority of an individual node, the resource devices of the entire network are called on to perform the processing of the block. If the nodes achieve consensus on that block, then that creates final candidate list, which is hashed. That hash list is then broadcast, and once again, the resources of the entire network are drawn on to seek agreement on that hash. Once that quorum is achieved, then that is posted to the blockchain. And when it's posted to the blockchain, then we're pushing back to all user devices the most up-to-date copy of the general ledger, the agreed upon, verified copy of the general ledger. So to try and explain this to normal people, basically you on your individual device are submitting some content. You're sharing that content with other nodes on the network who are helping to process that content, and they follow these steps to package that content and to verify and agree upon the veracity of the content. This is a process that prevents malicious copies being introduced or malicious files being introduced and adopted by the network. And that's the multi-node consensus, the quorum process prevents that. And then that is being eventually, once the nodes have agreed on the hash for the content, then being posted onto the blockchain. So here we have this process in a graphical representation, basically. So you've got your users on the left-hand side who are pushing transactions, which is content. They're writing messages on their application on their device, hitting enter. It's being sent to the network. Trusted nodes, or loose federations of trusted and partly trusted nodes, have the ability, the authority to compile that data, to compare it, and to package it into those candidate lists. Then the network is achieving consensus on that, and then the agreed upon, now updated copy of the general ledger of the blockchain is being pushed back to all user devices so that they all have the most current record of the blockchain. To achieve this, I should explain, we've had a lot of questions actually about what algorithm we're using, what school are we using. So we're using a proof of authority model, and in particular, we're using a delegated Byzantine fault tolerance consensus algorithm. So that's the specific method by which we will be processing the data on our network. And that ties in, that proof of authority model ties in very closely to our network architecture, which is what our network will look like in order to perform all of this. And I'll skip to network architecture now. So you'll remember that I was just explaining that we're going to do 3 releases, that at the first release, we're going to have only 5,000 users who we know and who we trust, who we've vetted, who we have established relationships with. The reason for that is because those 5,000 users at the beta release are going to have a very high level of publishing authority on our network. They're known as bookkeeper nodes. And in this network architectural diagram, we call them fully trusted nodes. These are the nodes we have the most trust in. We know that they're not some dodgy FBI troll bot. We know that they're not some random person that might have malicious intent. We know that they're legitimate users who will publish legitimate content and who can be trusted on our network. There are certain other social media sites that have had similar proof of authority models that have had what they call witness nodes that have had more authority than other nodes. Those nodes numbered around 100. So a key point of difference in PanQuake is that we're not limiting ourselves to 100. We will have 5,000 fully trusted nodes. And obviously 5,000 is a lot more difficult to compromise a majority of than 100. So then in our 1.1 release, where I told you that our beta users are going to be able to invite the people they trust to our network, then those people become these light yellow nodes, these partly trusted nodes. And they have more authority than a regular user, but less authority than the fully trusted nodes. And that's where we get into these loose federations, these trusted node federations and loose federations of nodes talking to each other, and nodes with greater levels of trust or authority having greater abilities to perform certain tasks around realizing that blockchain process that I just talked you through on the last slide. So when we go to our 2.0, our public release, that's where you get these typical, what we call the typical users, which are these purple nodes. So this is any random person who decides to join at the full public release of PanQuake becomes a typical user. Now, when a typical user is submitting content to our network, they delegate their authority to trusted nodes and fully trusted and partly trusted nodes. But the device resources of the typical user are still contributing to the power of the network as a whole. So even if what I like to call Mr. FBI Trollbot signs up and wants to be a part of PanQuake, they are still strengthening our network just by their presence on the network, but they have no ability to submit or get verified malicious block records or malicious general ledger copies because they will never be able to achieve consensus. They don't have the levels of authority necessary to process that data and to push it to through the consensus algorithm process and into the final general ledger copy. So it's a protection mechanism. This is about protecting the integrity of the network, protecting the integrity of the records and the record keeping of the network. So obviously, mobile users have less available device resources than someone using a laptop or a desktop computer. That's where we have these, what we call partial nodes. They can still contribute to the network. You absolutely can still use your mobile device to access the network, and you'll still be a participant in it. We're just recognizing the fact that you have less device resources available, which is why there are partial nodes in this diagram. Partial nodes rely on others for processing, as it says on the top left. So integral to this is the concept of a master node. Now, the master node, people will assume, is us, PanQuake, the business. It's actually not. This is not us. As I promised you last week, there is no client server model. We do not sit in the middle of users and their content and the blockchain. We are not an intermediary. We allow the users themselves to be the network and to be the processing of the network. The Masternode is the node most recently connected with the highest level of trust and the highest level of available resources. And then we switch that out by force every 30 seconds. So it is going to constantly shift from user to user. Now, that again is a protection mechanism to ensure that no single trusted node can ever take control of the network. They are always going to get switched out to somebody else before they can do really any real damage. And there will never be enough of them that they can independently achieve consensus on a malicious copy. So yeah, again, it's just about preserving network integrity and data integrity. We're using our network protocol as UDP, obviously, because it's light and fast, especially in predominantly text-based content. And I think that's about it from the network architecture perspective. So now let me try and explain that in layman's terms. The best that I can do is to say that we are going to bring the people who we trust the most onto our network first, and then we're going to give them more authority on our network than people who we don't know very well. And then the people we trust are going to bring the people they trust, and they also are going to have more authority than just some stranger or random account that we have no ability to trust in any way. But the people who we don't know and don't trust in are still going to be able to contribute to the growth and the strengthening of this network, are still going to be able to use this network, but they're not going to be able to control or corrupt this network. That's my best explanation for you of what I've just explained. Okay, going back to our core architecture, ideally, what I think Joe Booth, our Chief Technical Officer and my co-founder of PanQuake, would call the best implementation of PanQuake is Node on a Mongo backend, MongoDB, with JSON, utilizing REST API on particularly mobile, and JSON. This is pretty straightforward. It's not really out there or strange. This is pretty common type technologies for the purpose for which we're using them. And I think we move on to our server architecture. So the most notable thing about our server architecture is that, as I said, we are not a client server model. We are not forcing content to come through our servers in order to be processed. That in itself is huge by comparison to the big tech companies, all of whom do push all of your content and interactions through their servers before they publish them to the web. So in terms of our server architecture, we use fault tolerant storage to keep backup copies of the blockchain, just so that they are preserved. We have offsite copies as well, obviously, just to make sure that we can never lose access to those backups. We do run an observer monitor, which is just observing the network, just to make sure that everything is running as it should. So when I say observing, that doesn't mean spying on you. It doesn't mean accessing any of your information. All that means is that it's making sure that data is flowing through the network the way that it should, and that everything is happening according to the architectural plans. We have alerts and monitoring just to notify us if there is some problem, so that we can address that problem. And that's about it. Everything here is very straightforward. So next part is, I think I haven't missed anything there on the architecture, but I do now want to talk about what is this going to cost. Sorry, I'll just kill my screen share for a second. Last week, we talked about changing the paradigm, changing the entire nature of the relationships between users and social media services. So we talked about the way that big tech are abusing the users currently, and how they defend that as being on a basis of, oh, well, our service is free, so therefore it's okay that we're spying on you and everything that you do, and therefore it's okay that we are keeping all of your personal data and then commercializing it and selling it to corporations and governments and security agencies because our service is free. And we discussed how actually that's not okay. And actually the user needs to become the customer. And we discussed how the user becoming the customer, instead of them being exploited as a product, puts the power back in the user's hands over their own data, over their own devices and their own browsing activity and their own personal choices. And how we can do that for actually a very small amount of money. And I mean, ultimately, if there are people who would rather be spied on and exploited and shadow banned and or arbitrarily suspended and or live in a manipulated filterverse where you never really know what's real because everything that's coming into you and everything that you're pushing out is being manipulated. If you prefer that status quo because it's free, then more power to you to stay on those networks. But personally, I can tell you, I don't prefer that. I prefer a solution where I can have trust and I can trust in the integrity of the platform, where I can know that I'm not being spied on, where I can know that when I send a message, people see it, where I can know that when I accrue followers, that they're still my followers next week or next month because there's nobody unfollowing them from me forcefully, as has been occurring with these big tech platforms. And where I know that I'm just not being exploited and I'm not being abused by a platform that imposes themselves as an intermediary between me and my friends, and that has the audacity to manipulate and impact my personal relationships. So for me, PanQuake is a really easy question from a commercialization standpoint. Would I pay a very small amount of money per month to free myself from tech tyranny? Yeah, absolutely, I would. And in terms of the feedback that we've received from all of you over the course of the last week, you would too. In fact, I think there's been like 2 people that I've seen question the idea of paying a small amount of money for an exceptional and innovative service that will protect them and that will not exploit them. And across the board, everybody else has just been like, sign me up, let's go, let's do this. When can I have it? I want it now. Please develop this as quickly as possible. So as far as I'm concerned, the feedback has been resounding. People want this. They agree with the commercialization model. I will just quickly step you through the exact prices that we're applying for each of the releases. And I think you'll agree, it's about as modest as it could possibly be for a major piece of technology like this. It's certainly less than almost every other web service that I am aware of on the internet. So in terms of commercialization, it's pretty basic. So when we bring on our first 5,000 people, we're giving them $3 per month for life. When we bring on our 1.1 users, which are recruited onto our platform by our beta users, they are paying $4 per month, and that's it, flat fee. And that gives them access to all of the functionality of PanQuake across the board. There is never any additional pay more money for this or pay more money for that. We are committing to one flat fee per user, level playing field. That's it, no more. And at the commercial 2.0 release, you will be paying $5 per month per user, again, flat across the board. Now, be aware that Stripe does apply credit card surcharges of about 30 cents that we're aware of, and PayPal does also charge 5%. We will be giving crypto payment options, at least in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDT, but we will be pushing for Zcash and Monero and other more private crypto implementations as well. So, and obviously with those, you're not going to have to deal with surcharges or anything like that. So very basic, easy to understand, transparent commercialization model that we commit right now to not tampering with. So what are you going to get for your $5 other than the very key points that I've just explained to you? You are getting for your $5 really a whole new world of social media, but you're getting 14 ironclad solutions to major existing social media problems. You are getting 4 brand new, extremely powerful features for expanding social reach and amplification. Tools that I would only be able to dream of to this point as a journalist and an activist in terms of being a capacity to build audience and to spread messages. We are handing you that technology for your $5 a month. You will have total ownership and control of your own data, and you have a solid balance of privacy by design built into our platform, and the transparency of the blockchain. And then, as if that wasn't enough, down the line, I can guarantee you'll also have the ability to earn cryptocurrency for your content. And just to reiterate, That won't be on our blockchain. That will be via integration with existing decentralized networks, who shall remain anonymous at this point. So I think the only thing that I haven't really covered off for you so far is the next most obvious questions, which are around content moderation and site policy. And so I would like to just quickly cover that now. So obviously, we are not going to allow horrific, heinous things, illegal things specifically, to be published to our network. That would be unconscionable to us. This is not a place for child porn. This is not a place for illegal content. We are not protecting your rights. We're protecting your freedoms, and you do not have the freedom to commit crimes. Therefore, lawful activity will absolutely be protected on our network, will not be censored. This is not about censoring opinions. We will never censor based on opinions. Censorship will only be along unlawful, illegal activity. So all lawful activity is protected on our network. We will have an abuse policy that clearly outlines what is illegal and what is not illegal. We will not be making arbitrary suspensions or bans unless there are users engaged in posting illegal content to our network, in which case, absolutely, we will be removing that content, and we will be reporting to our users that we have removed that content. Everybody does need to abide by our license, but our licenses are pretty open. Sean will talk about that. We are an open source development project. We are free software. And so I'll leave it for him to go through the specifics around licensing. There is a reporting function, and there is the ability to file complaints, obviously. We're also, it's not mentioned here, but we're also hoping to have live customer service inbuilt within the application, so that you can talk to a real person, not a robot, about your problems. In terms of service, you agree to participate, you agree to process data on our network, to contribute to the processing of data, to connect to other nodes, because we are a P2P decentralized network. Obviously, we will have invoicing and payments built into the application itself. We promise responsiveness to our users, and we've done a great job of that already this week. Anybody who's interacted with us will be able to verify that. We will need to apply metering or rate limits that prevent abuse of the platform, just so that we can't have Mr. FBI Trollbot coming along and hitting a button 50 times in a row because he wants to jam things up. We will actually give a lot more details about our governance model into the future, but you've already had some details tonight. Questions around Jira Restriction. This is one that we are still working on, and one that Sean, I think, will have a lot to say about as well. We do need to account for questions like what happens if Saudi Arabia, as one example, decides that no one in Saudi Arabia can access PanQuake. And in terms of privacy policy, we have a number of amazing promises to you, which we absolutely are already living up to and will continue to. No tracking, no cookies, no selling user data, no personalization algorithms, no knowledge servers, no AdWorks, total access to your own data, and compliant with in New Zealand the Privacy Act 1993 and 2020, but also with GDPR and other relevant privacy legislation worldwide. So let me see, I think that's about it tonight for my presentation, except to really talk now about the delivery model for this application, which is pretty unique for a software project. So I am intending to use what's known as a frequent delivery model, because the big question on everybody's lips now is going to be, when can we get this? Give us a date, give us a time, give us a place. And that's not how we're going to work. How we're going to work is by coming back to you in a live stream event on the last Saturday of every single month. And at that delivery public meeting, we will be presenting to you an update on the work that has been completed within that calendar month to progress the build of this project. There's a number of reasons I want to do this, primarily because it builds confidence with the audience. It means that you can really engage with PanQuake. You can buy in, not just financially, but buy into the process of delivering PanQuake to the public, that you can measurably track the progress that is being made by our team, that you can keep up to date on new innovations that we're employing You can hear about partnership details. You can hear about the interoperability that I was talking about earlier, and our planned integrations. And so that we can faithfully report to you exactly what stage of the development we are at on a month-by-month basis. The real reason for this is because I don't want to pull a date out of a hat and say, well, we've estimated that it will be released by X date, and then just we all go off into a black hole for 6 months or 12 months, and then we're like, oh, sorry, we've missed that date because XYZ problem. That is very common in software development projects, for you to be promised a delivery date and that date to be pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, or for the project to fail, fall over at testing and never deliver at all. So I don't want to ever let that happen with PanQuake. And how I guarantee that that won't happen is by coming back to our PanQuake community every single month and telling you, this is where we're at, this is the progress we've made this month, this is what we're going to do in the coming month, and I will be back here in 1 month to show you that that is in fact what we have done. And that is what I call a frequent delivery model. I think it is the best model for our customers. I think it is the best model for our development team and our project managers. And I think that this allows for also for a continued incremental organic growth of our PanQuake community as more people become aware of this project and become engaged and get on board. So of course, we have an amazing team. We've got 23 people working for us, but we need your help, because right now those 23 people are volunteering. They're working day jobs, and then they're working on PanQuake after hours and on weekends. If we want to get this project over the line fast, we need to be able to pay our staff to come on full time with us. So as we mentioned earlier, the initial $50,000 that we're fundraising is the absolute must-have necessary funding to meet the costs of establishing the business, and to, I mean, a lot of work has been done about it around establishing the business, but what is outstanding to complete, and around the front end build and delivery of the beta product. So that 50,000 will push the beta over the line eventually, as per our volunteers' ability to work on this project. But if you want an accelerated beta build, if you want the beta build in dramatically shorter time frame than it can otherwise be achieved by the volunteer team, then we need to be able to bring these people onto contract, employ them full time, and have them developing PanQuake all day, every day. We have the best people, we have skilled, experienced, qualified people. Let's use them. Let's bring them on with PanQuake full time. If you, our community, financially empower us to be able to do so, we will be able to deliver this product months ahead of schedule. So if you want to see that happen, be our PR team, be our media team, share the link to panquake.com to every corner of the internet, recruit people to promote this product, spread the word, bring us as much funding as you can, and we will systematically employ all of our best people one by one and expedite the development of this project. I will see everybody again on the last Saturday of February. I believe it was like the 28th. I don't know, I have to check. Now, 27th, I believe, Saturday 27th. I will be back to deliver the progress that our incredible team has made over the coming 4 or 5 weeks. I look forward to seeing you then. I think now we're going to have a little chat with Jo, and Taylor's back, so I'll hand over to her. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope I didn't bore you silly, and I hope I explained in an easy to understand way what is happening on the back end of the PanQuake build.
All right, Suzy, thank you for that very detailed overview. As she said, please visit panquake.com, contribute to this product, and also get signed up so you can participate. Next up, I do want to introduce our next speaker of the evening, a leading privacy expert, and he is also the founder of the Yale Privacy Lab, Sean O'Brien. Sean is also a core member of the PanQuake team, and he will be speaking to you all about privacy, trust, ethical design, as well as free and open source software.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Brien, and I'm an expert in privacy and cybersecurity. I lead Privacy Lab, which is an initiative of the Information Society Project at Yale Law School. I've lectured at Yale Law School on cybersecurity, and I've got about 2 decades of experience with free and open source software, what some people call open source, as well as general software development experience, system administration, cryptography, and so on. For PanQuake, I'm excited to be an advisor on the project in these areas: privacy, cybersecurity, trust. And today I want to really focus on that last aspect, trust. I think it's really central to the product, and it permeates from the lower sort of back-end layers that you've just heard about with blockchain and so on, all the way up through the front end to the user experience. So from the blockchain perspective, right, it's a bold move to launch a social network and have the kind of transparency and assurance that a blockchain can provide. Anybody will be able to view, for example, what the moderation practice, not just policy, practice that goes on is, because they can look at the blockchain. So all changes in the network, you'll see in an active way, annotated in the blockchain. On the front end, there's a strong dedication to free and open source software as well. So not only do you have that transparency and assurance at the low level, but the software that the average user sees as PanQuake, interacts with, does Thunderquakes, does Lovequakes, does all these amazing new features. That software is going to have a high level of transparency as well, down in the core of the source code. So for those of you unfamiliar with the terminology, free and open source software, it basically means that you can view the source code of the software and see how it operates. You can share that source code. You can modify that source code. You can remix that source code. And it means that there's a community development model, right, as an aspect of the product. So if you're into security and you want to get involved, you can look at the source, you can audit it, you can suggest changes. If you're into design and user experience, you can get involved at that level. If you're interested in accessibility and localization and those kinds of aspects, or even documentation, which is so sorely needed in the free and open source software world, you can get involved at that level. So we're going to build this community structure around the product and make sure that you feel respected and heard and actively a part of the growth and innovation of PanQuake. So we'd like to encourage members of the FOSS community, as well as people who don't, normally do open source or software libre or whatever term you're used to. Folks who don't even know what that stuff is, we want to have them actively part of the feedback process. Folks who can hack on the code base, we're going to build a community structure around that and have privacy respecting ways that folks can get involved, communicate with each other, and collaborate on that. We want to have pen testers and amateurs alike looking at the security, auditing the protocols, suggesting different cryptographic approaches, and giving candid feedback, right? Strong, candid, active feedback, so that when the application goes live, we're not testing it on an audience. It's already been through the ringer. It already is awesome and works well and has the level of privacy and cybersecurity that no other social network can compete with. So that's the goal. And the way to start, of course, is by building that structure, which is what is happening right now. And I'm glad to be advising on. PanQuake will not be making the same mistakes as other recent sort of social media experiments, if you will. You're probably familiar with some really reckless handling of personal information in some of these other networks. We have the benefit of hindsight, of course, but also many of these things are based upon sort of just a lack of privacy by design. Building in that privacy at a low level is another way to sort of build trust you're making it difficult to make mistakes, right? By having protocols in place, by having policies in place, and by designing software and infrastructure in such a way that, for example, you follow the principle of least authority, right? That means that you don't share something with something or someone who doesn't need that information. You don't create a huge data trail and just cache and back up everything. If you don't need to log it, and there will be very little logging in this network except for functionality and sort of crash reporting and those kinds of things. But if you don't need to log it, you don't. And throwing out information is the anathema of the surveillance industry that most social networks run upon. So it's really exciting to see that PanQuake is dedicated to not doing all of that. And it takes real dedicated work to come up with those designs, which is where I fit in. So that sort of brings me to my primary role, which is advising on the privacy aspects of the project. As Suzy and others have pointed out, PanQuake is determined to be as private as possible in as many dimensions as possible, and sort of the software and the infrastructure will allow. And where that privacy does not yet exist, it will be designed and implemented. In many cases, the network will be accessible with real, true anonymity. We're looking at things like Tor, which many of you will be familiar with, and I2P as well, and perhaps some other implementations, to come up with ways that you can actually sign up for a PanQuake account. You can have that subscription, and the payment method and all of that stuff can be done in an anonymous way. That's going to require some sort of cryptocurrency implementation, some sort of cart, maybe with Bitcoin, maybe with some other coins as well. And that kind of structure to have early on, I think, is really important. We're not only proving that the implementation of the sort of development process, the start of the development, is trustworthy and that the team is trustworthy, but also that when the product does ship, when the product is available to many, many users, that there can be strong trust in every aspect of the stack. And just like in any other relationship that you might have with an individual or a team, or I don't know, a restaurant that you go to, right? Trust is built through action, through experience, through really observing how things are run. And that's where the transparency and the assurance, I think, is really strong in this project. So, having privacy controls, having transparency on the back end, having that sort of assurance and even accountability about moderation so that secret manipulation isn't happening to you without you knowing what's going on. Well, it won't happen at all, but in those other networks, you get manipulated and you don't even know why, let alone just the manipulation being bad enough. But having that level of sort of innovative practice around privacy and transparency is something that sets PanQuake away from the pack. Another thing that makes it very different is some of the people who are involved and their ethical approach to technology and ethics in life, really. Bill Binney, who's an NSA whistleblower, who you may know, has talked about a lot of aspects about what the NSA has been doing and has done with their mass surveillance, dragnet surveillance programs. He's involved in PanQuake. He's got an expert cryptographic background. He's got some great ideas about how to do things like end-to-end encrypted messaging in sort of innovative ways, providing that assurance, providing information flows that can be trusted, both from the standpoint of the network operator, but also the downstream user. So that's really exciting stuff, and I can't wait to see what Bill comes up with and how it's implemented. But none of that, sort of really matters in any real sense unless you can use the software, understand what you're doing, enjoy it, and feel like you're interfacing with a community. Social media is supposed to be about community, which is why I think social community is probably a better term here for PanQuake. But part of that is accessibility. Accessibility is, too often an afterthought in these projects. And we're making sure that that is at the root of the design process in each development decision. And specifically when the user interface starts shaping up and there will be, betas and so on available, you'll see how that has been built into the design. Localization is also another aspect, right? Not having the Silicon Valley sort of cloistered, closed group of developers coming up with something for the rest of the world and kind of pushing that, forcing it on everyone. That's something that PanQuake, would never do. They would never try to force something down the throats of their users. And localization is going to be key. It's not just the English-speaking world. It's not just the United States or California or Redmond, Washington, right? That should have a say in what goes on with this product. And with an international team, a very talented international team that's moving very quickly, and with the support of donors who are doing a great job, getting this project off to a serious and really robust and fast start, which has been great. I think that localization commitment is going to be strong and something that you should look forward to if you're worried about that aspect. What's really going on here, right? Connecting people internationally is the goal of the internet, is it not? And PanQuake is sort of the realization of the dream of the earlier internet, the dream of that sort of freer internet before the lockdown that big tech created. And that's the dream of people like John Perry Barlow, who founded the Electronic Frontier Foundation. A lot of the early sort of interaction on the internet, which was freer and more open and so on. PanQuake can be that now, but with the benefit of hindsight, with the benefit of strong security, with the benefit of serious privacy by design built in, with the lessons of what happens when there's lockdown, faux communities or walled gardens, right? We can get around that. We can build better. We can create new things. And PanQuake, I think, is going to be a great example of that. To that end, PanQuake can't use, for example, JavaScript code that's just running off of some server that big tech controls. You can't use a content development network or CDN for chunks of code that are running, or for caching. You can't use Amazon AWS or any of these sorts of things, and that's a challenge. It's something that I think the product will be able to get a huge leg up on because of its decentralized blockchain design, which is very smart and robust. But it also is going to take some serious thought to make sure that the code that's running in your browser when you load PanQuake is vetted, known, and available to be read by humans, right? So that it can be audited. And that's something you don't see pretty much anywhere. I'm sort of alluding to a problem which free software, open source software folks may know as the JavaScript trap. That's something that sort of came in the middle part of the 2000s, where our browsers started executing tons and tons of this code called JavaScript without any real transparency, without any serious consent mechanisms, often with no way to read it or understand it as a human because it's been minimized and sort of compressed and hard to read. And you'll see, even just from the websites that have been put together so far, JavaScript web labels are on these sites. If you're using the Libra.js extension, right, it will tell you what JavaScript is being loaded. It's all being loaded locally. So you're only connected to panquake.com when you're connected to panquake.com, right? And those sort of things are already showing the dividends of this kind of approach. We want you to feel that confidence. We want you to understand that it's not just planning, it's actual implementation and deployment. And we're starting to see that already. So, I hope you support the project. I can't wait to see what happens, and I hope you can't wait either. We'd love to have you involved. We want you to know that there's going to be serious privacy, security, transparency, freedom, and more importantly, perhaps most importantly than anything, especially with everything going on with places like Twitter and Facebook and so on, we want you to feel that you're being respected. That aspect of respect is something that's so lost, and that PanQuake will do something to restore to the world of social media. So thanks, and stay safe out there.
And that was Sean O'Brien. He is the founder of the Yale Privacy Lab, as well as a core member of the PanQuake team. If you like what you are hearing this evening, please visit panquake.com, donate, and also get signed up. Now, next up, we are joined by ex-NSA Technical Director Bill Binney. He is also a member of the PanQuake Executive Committee and the development team. Bill, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you and in this effort to put a new open product on the street that doesn't do the kinds of things that the existing establishment of monopolies in terms of social media do, like banning people from whose opinions they don't like simply because they don't like it. And the other point is, I think about, and one of the important aspects of this effort is that it doesn't capture and store the data of the users. This is very important because this is the kind of things that's being used against individuals to spy on them, both by governments, not just the US government, but multiple governments around the world, as well as companies selling the data. You are the ones that effectively put the data in their hands and make it possible for them to sell it. So you're basically slave labor to those monopolies of social media. That's why this is a pleasure for me to be here, because now this helps break this cabal up, and it also helps give privacy to people in the world and the ability to voice their opinions anywhere without being shadow blocked or otherwise kept from hearing other opinions or speaking their own. So for me, this is the most important aspect that I've seen about this program that's totally different from what exists, and certainly starts to get to the human rights that we have here in the United States in our Constitution. Others have it in their constitutions around the world. And that's the right to privacy and the right to know what the government's doing and not have the government know what you're doing. That's fundamentally what's over here in the US Constitution. We, the people, are supposed to be aware of what the government's doing on our behalf. And right now, the entire government we've had for any number of decades has been nothing but secret. They've created false wars. They've done all kinds of things that if people knew about before they did it, they could have turned it around and stopped it. And so because we haven't had that kind of media, and I mean, mainstream media is a part of this cabal with government, as well as Wall Street and the banking institutions and the tech people. They're all basically those at the top of the feeding chain, feeding on the work and efforts of everybody down below. And that means everybody in the world, because we're all working for these telecommunications social media companies for nothing. You're never getting paid for it, and yet you're doing all the work, giving them all the data, and they're selling it and manipulating it, using it to market things to you and use it to spy on you and things of that nature. So this is the kind of effort that should break this entire cabal worldwide. And that's really why I'm a part of it, because this is the kind of thing that I've been hoping would start in Europe after the business of the European Union finding out that the telecommunications companies that were there in their country were feeding their data to NSA. And so, to me, that's something in the GDPR. I helped at least I had an input to that. And I'd hope that would, in essence, start lawsuits against these companies to either put them out of business in Europe or to get them to start doing the right things. And so far, it's very clear they're not doing the right things. So to me, this is the best effort available that I see in the world to start doing the things that are right and give people privacy and the right to express their opinions, as long as they're not legally conflicting with legal laws around the world, then that they have the right to say that. And that's why I'm here. The idea is to have some kind of an encryption system that is like multi-dimensional, so that you won't even the people working on PanQuake wouldn't necessarily be able to know who's involved. It could happen without them really knowing. And actually, this was the design I had for the agency I was working with before, so that no one even in the agency could know who was involved in the transactions they were looking at. And they couldn't get to it until they had justification for a warrant. So, and even then it would have to come back for a request to do a decrypt. And so the whole idea was to be able to do that without anybody really knowing. No FBI could not abuse the data, no one could abuse the data. And that would go then for the PanQuake team too. They could not abuse the data. And that's the whole idea of the design, is to make it impossible for anybody anywhere to be able to do that. And that's the intent. The development team that we're working with to try to put together the system are, as far as I can tell, they're very technically competent and also quite open-minded and flexible to do iterative type development, which is the best way to develop a system of this nature, because you're not necessarily dependent and don't want to be dependent on any of the legacy approaches that have been in existence up to date. You need to be able to be flexible enough to build the best possible technical approach, and I have absolute confidence in the team that's involved in PanQuake to be able to do that. And so that's why I'm also participating, because we have such a good team together. If you wish to support us, anybody wants to support us, please go to panquake.com and donate as much as possible. Because if you do, the more money we get, the more effort we can put into it, the more we can bring people we can bring on to accelerate the development and deployment of this system. And so the faster we get it out there, the faster people can use it, the more people can use it. And so more money we get, the better, of course. So whatever you can help us with to help move this project forward, we greatly appreciate it.
If you like what you are hearing this evening, please visit panquake.com, donate, and also get signed up. Next, I do want to introduce to you, or reintroduce to you, our two co-founders of this product, Suzy Dawson and Joe Booth.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, welcome along.
Joe, what would you like to share with our audience tonight?
Well, I think it's fantastic to be part of this project, and I really enjoyed our initial sessions. Several months back, pulling together this architecture and designing this product. It started with a thought about how could we build a decentralized social network? How could we build something that achieved all these goals? That is something that we've been looking for years. I mean, my personal journey sort of started many years ago. I started with trying to scrape content off news websites to put onto my favorite social networks, because there wasn't content. I was an early adopter and there wasn't anything happening. I just wanted to see what was happening. I like to connect to people, and I think a lot of what happens in our social networks, we're not seeing the messages from people. We're seeing a filtered content of what we want to see. So I think a lot of the design of this product of PanQuake was built so that we could be sure that we had received the message that someone had sent us, that we could be sure that any action we took, like liking or sharing something, is recorded in a blockchain. I've always enjoyed sharing every aspect of my life with it, and I often use social media as a way to keep notes about what I've done. And I often, you'll often see from me messages saying I'm just headed off down to there, or I did this today, or did this today. And so for me, having a social network that can record that kind of activity stream is fantastic. Years and years ago, I came across social aggregators, and I started using one many years ago. I think the link to it's probably still in my Twitter profile, because that's when I last felt like my social networks were connected, that my activity from everywhere was shared in a way that I had control of, that the messages were coming through, and I could check that when I sent something on Plurk, that my Plurk arrived on the activity stream and centralized. So I'm excited by this product, and I think it will serve a lot of people that are looking for that authentic communication with other people. And I think that is where the combination of people and technology can totally make this happen. So I'm excited to build this with you, Suzy, and it's been a great ride so far. And it's fantastic to see how enthusiastic people are about PanQuake.com and how they want to support us and increase our momentum so we can build this product that we've promised. It's fantastic also to be part of this team. You may have seen in our previous video all the team members that are part of my team that have been brought on and joined in with us on this endeavor. It's fantastic to have such a team with such a broad range of interests and expertise. I particularly enjoyed talking with Bill about some of our designs and some of the aspects of our network, how cryptography can be used to authenticate messages, and how you can use hashes and keys in a way that connects things together and makes them provable. And so it's fantastic to be able to realize some of his dreams as well as mine. And I think all of us in PanQuake at the moment have had these dreams and hopes, and it's now that we don't need to hope any longer. We can build it, and together with your help and with your support out there in the community, we can build this, and we can build it a lot faster. It's been amazing actually to see your support. When we launched PanQuake the other day, we never expected to receive. I think initially it was maybe a few hundred people will pay attention, but I think when we're talking about what we would like in a social network, that resounds with other people. When we're looking to serve you rather than make money off you, when we're looking to earn your trust and build something that will benefit you, I think this kind of way of working is a fantastic way of working. I left the corporate industry a few years back, and it was there that I realized I was more screwing people for money rather than helping them. So in these endeavors and in this particular project, I think we are seeking to help people realize their potential, to unlock that latent potential that they have, to share a message, to have a conversation with others. And even in our stream the other day, you saw people talking about how that would mean for them to not be shadow banned, to not be blocked, to be able to send a message and know that people have actually seen it. So it's fantastic to be part of this journey. And so
what you just said really resonates with me a great deal, because at my most commercially successful in my professional career, I felt like the net result of what I did was just to cause unemployment for low and medium level employees by creating automated innovations and making executives very happy that I was creating passive income streams for them through technology, but ultimately benefiting society not at all. By comparison, the work I've done outside of the commercial sphere to date has been extremely satisfying. It hasn't been financially rewarding at all. It's been financially disastrous, but I've had the deep satisfaction of knowing that I was contributing something meaningful to the social sphere. I think PanQuake is a fantastic merging of the two, where we can be a viable commercial business, but we can really change things for people. We can solve problems for them that they, weeks before our release, couldn't imagine ever could be solved for them. People have felt very trapped, very boxed in by big tech. They felt helpless and disempowered. And by contrast, since our launch event, some of the commentary that I've seen has basically reduced me to tears. Somebody said on our donation page comment section that they said, I woke up today and I felt hope. I felt hope for the future because I know about PanQuake. And you can't really put a price on that. To have that type of positive influence on how people feel about themselves and the world and society is priceless. And I'm so grateful to everybody on our team who's helping to make something so special come about. I would just quickly like to talk, I think it's really important to talk about definitions of success, because I think the typical expectation around what a successful social network is that you have 2 billion users or 600 million users or 3 million users. And I haven't thought about PanQuake in that way at all, because to me, just even our 5,000 beta users, just if we take it down to the micro, if we can take 5,000 people and give them the assurance and the confidence that they can communicate free of manipulation, free of censorship, that they can have that filterverse broken, to me, that's a success. In all sincerity, if this network only had 5,000 users, that's a success. If there are 5,000 people who can freely exchange and share information, totally free of the corruption of big tech, that is a success. You know, if we can have 25,000 that can do that, that's a success. That's an even bigger success. I don't see mass adoption and hundreds of millions of users as defining success for PanQuake. I see anybody being freed from the constraints of big tech manipulation as a success. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to. My friends, my family, my fellow content creators, or that person who leaves a message telling us how touched they are and how their worldview has changed by knowing we exist. Those people being freed, for me, defines the success of PanQuake, not just the total number of users over X amount of months or years.
Yeah, I totally agree. I see the success of this as even enabling that one or two people, if we can break through that that oppression upon them, just one or two people, I think we will be successful. I really do enjoy. I've worked in tech for years. I do enjoy helping people unlock the potential of tech and to solve some of the issues they have. And I think one of the aspects that's I've really enjoyed seeing with this project is our user interface. How it's not just for text. It's not a it's not. You'll probably find me on every social network out there. There's probably an account for me, so I've tried them all, and there's been plenty out there. And certainly, I think PanQuake brings the usability and the user experience back to a social network. You've talked previously about how we're saving people clicks, and it's not just for content creators, but it's for everyone. When your page doesn't have to load 3 times, so that it can go out to the separate ad services and to share your details with the other providers, to make sure that Twitter gets their copy of the link you're sending to someone else to store in their servers and provide analytics on who you've sent it to and where it's gone. I think that's some of our core principles around and not tracking you. And I think that's how we've designed this initial interaction with PanQuake.com. We're asking you for donations to help us accelerate our build. We're also giving you a way that you can get into our service by issuing you with a 12-word passphrase. And a lot of the design of that passphrase was around the fact that we don't want to have to record your name or your number or anything. And in fact, we have chosen to decouple that process from the donation system. So the donation system, while it might go to Stripe or PayPal or another payment provider, the next step of the process doesn't see anything about that, and that's from the PanQuake site. It gives you those 12. You generate the 12 words yourself, and we never see those 12 words unless of course you log a support call with us and send them to us. But we should never need to see those. What we instead do is take a hash or a cryptographic signature of those 12 words, so that we know that when you present those 12 words to your client at the other end, we can compare the cryptographic hash of that information, and we can be sure that it's you, whoever you are, that are coming back to access PanQuake. So we're excited to see some of you, and it's awesome to see so many people getting early access codes. It'll be fantastic to see it. I think you also mentioned earlier, Suzy, about access codes, and there's probably a bit more information about that.
Yeah, sure. So, it was amusing and very cute to me when I think two individuals at least had worked out that they could access the site that hosts the codes without having donated. And they thought to themselves, ooh, I've exploited panquake.com. I'm so clever. I've worked out a way to get the access code. No, actually, it was not an exploit at all. What happened is that we prioritized, okay, in our different use cases, what about if somebody donates and they shut the page too quickly, or they don't realize to go and get the second step? How can we keep this open enough and accessible to them that they still can generate the code? And as you say, we don't want to track the donations against the codes. We don't want to tie the donor to the recipient of the code. So we deliberately kept that process of generating the code open. Another reason that we did that is because why would we want to stop people getting early access codes? Early access codes mean there'll be an additional user on our platform. And because the donation is not a service fee, you're not donating so that you can pay your service fee and become a registered user of PanQuake. You're donating to support the build and accelerate the development of the product. You're receiving the early access code just because you've made an expression of interest that you want to be on PanQuake one day in the future. And at that 2.0, you will be prioritized in terms of coming onto the system. But we deliberately kept that process open because we were more concerned about people not being able to get early access code than we were about preventing them from getting an early access code. So it just comes back to the general ethos of wanting to serve the user, not ever taking a pathway that ingests personal or user information in order to be for our own commercial convenience. We're really very careful to keep that separated, and I'm proud of us for doing that.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be able to employ some of these principles. Often they get overlooked in projects and the rush to commercialize a product or to pull something together. And it's great to have Sean and others on our team that can highlight these principles along the way. It's something that I have an extreme pleasure to be able to build these kind of systems that respect people's privacy and don't take you for granted. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen Sean calling us on our innovations, saying, you must think about this, you must think about that, here's some information about this, here's some information about that, and really holding, which is what I asked him to do from the outset. I said from the outset, you know what our aspirations are. Aspirations are to serve the user in all ways and to never, ever keep or attempt to benefit from any of their information. Please hold us to account on that, Sean. And he has constantly bettered our development practices and made sure that we are designing this in not just to the standards of ethical design, but actually in the most possible ethical way possible, even if that requires creating new innovations or solutions in order to make this more private. And personally, it wouldn't come as a shock to many people to know that I love Edward Snowden very much. And I want to develop a product that Edward Snowden is comfortable using and that protects him and provides him with what he needs out of a technical solution. But I also love my mother very much. And my mother is not very technically adept at all. Sorry, Mum. And I want to develop a product that my mother can use. I want to develop a product that my kids can use, that anyone, regardless of technical ability, can hit our website and within 1 to 2 minutes have worked out for themselves intuitively how to use our service. And so that's the path that we're walking here. We're walking a path where we have credible, private, ethical design that will serve the most extreme use case, such as a Snowden, such as an Assange, but that also will be accessible and will serve the needs and interests of your average non-technical user as well. And I really feel like we are achieving this, and I'm very proud of it. And you're right in pointing out that the architectural diagrams I showed tonight, we didn't toss them together this week. They are actually 4 or 5 months old, those documents. We have done an intense amount of work since then. We have mapped the entire functionality of our application to the most minute degree possible. We have completed all of our use cases. We have completed all of our workflows. We have draft mock-ups for every screen of our application. Obviously, we're electing not to share those at this stage while they're still in development. We certainly will be in the future when they're tested and ready for release. An immense amount of work has gone into this project, and it will take an immense amount of work to complete it. But we are significantly along that pathway already, and we have got absolutely the best people around us making that happen. So I think now it's time for us to get back to work. Are there any closing words you would like to say, Joe?
No, well, certainly I'm usually a man of few words unless you get me talking about tech. So I'm happily, I'm happy. So we'll continue on.
Cool.
And I love to see all your donations and kind comments coming through. It's fantastic.
Well, that really is the core message tonight. You want PanQuake. We know you do. You've told us you do. You want it faster. Get out there and advocate for us. Get out there and spread the word. Get out there and recruit people on. Get them into, get them contributing donations. And we'll do our part in converting our volunteer task force into a paid task force, into a paid workforce that will bring PanQuake to you faster. Thank you all so much for being here and for your love and your care and your attention.
All right, thank you guys so much. And after viewing this stream, you know that we've got the team, we've got the technical know-how, and now we just need the resources. And that's where we are depending on you to please visit panquake.com, donate, get signed up, and also donate with spreading the word by sharing panquake.com on social media and filling in your friends and family on this new groundbreaking social media. I want to thank everyone who participated tonight, including Suzy Dawson, Joe Booth, Sean O'Brien, and Bill Binney. I'm your host, Taylor Hudak, and I'll see you all next time.